My housemate is dead, but no one will admit it. Has anyone ever experienced something like this? Because I feel like I'm losing my grip on reality. It started last week. I live in a shared house with 4 others: Jess, Leah, Daniel, and Marcus. Leah is the one I'm sure is dead. The problem? No one else seems to think so. At first, I thought she was just messing with us. She's always been the type to shut down when overwhelmed, go quiet, zone out, pretend she's asleep. We even have a running joke about it. We call it her playing possum. But now, she's been playing possum for a week. Her eyes are wide open. Her skin is pale, almost gray, turning that sickly purple hue. Her body looks swollen, and last night, I saw a fly land on her face and stay there. She hasn't moved. Hasn't changed out of her ridiculous panda onesie since last Monday. And the smell. The stench of rat clings to the walls. It's the kind of putrid decay that makes your stomach churn. But somehow everyone else is acting like nothing's wrong. A dead cat and a curse. I think it all started last Sunday. We were out late, driving home, Jess, Daniel, Marcus, Leah, and me. I was behind the wheel. It was dark, and we were all a little tipsy when it happened. A black cat darted into the road. I didn't even have time to swerve before the sickening thump jolted through the car. My stomach turned. Then, an old woman came rushing out of her house. She saw what had happened and screamed. She looked at us with these dark, hollow eyes, her face twisted in fury. Leah, always the one to say the wrong thing, told her she should have kept the cat inside. The woman just stared at her. Stared so hard it felt like the air around us thickened. Then she muttered something under her breath. A language I didn't recognize. A curse. I know that now. We laughed it off at the time. We left her standing in the road with her dead cat. But by morning, Leah was different. No one will believe me. Monday morning, I found her in the living room. She was sitting in the chair, bundled up in that ridiculous panda onesie. Her arms limp at her sides, her head tilted slightly, her gaze locked on the television, but not really watching it. I told her good morning. She didn't respond. I figured she was just tired, but when I got home from work that afternoon, she was still there. Same position, same clothes, same vacant stare. Marcus barely looked up from his game. She's sick, he muttered. At dinner, Jess repeated the same thing. She's having a rough time, just leave her alone. By day 3, the house stank of something rotting. I pointed it out, but Jess just sighed. She hasn't showered, okay? Don't be a jerk about it. I wanted to scream. Leah wasn't just struggling. She was decomposing. They're pretending she's alive. On the 4th day, I woke up to find Leah at the dining table. She hadn't moved on her own. I knew she hadn't. But there she was, slumped over her chair, her empty eyes fixed on the ceiling. And the others, they just kept talking to her. Jess asked if she wanted coffee. Marcus made a joke about her not finishing her food. And no one acknowledged the way her skin was turning green, how the air around her was thick with the smell of death. I called the cops. I thought this was it. The moment they'd finally snap out of their delusion. That the police would take one look and see what I'd been seeing since Monday. Instead, they talked to her. She never answered, never moved, never even acknowledged them. And yet, after a few minutes, they just nodded and left. Jess cornered me afterward, furious. She told me I was making things worse. Said I was pushing Leah when she just needed time. That's when I realized this wasn't normal denial anymore. Something was wrong. Something unnatural. Getting rid of her. By the end of the week, the house was unbearable. The smell was inescapable. Even Marcus and Daniel started whispering about it, but when I confronted them, they shut down. So I did the only thing I could. Last night, while everyone was asleep, I wrapped Leah's body in her filthy panda onesie, carried her out to my car, and and drove to the cliffs on the edge of town. I threw her into the ravine. The animals would take care of the rest. Then I went home. I scrubbed the house clean, tossed out the chairs she had been decaying in, opened every window. For the first time in days, I could breathe. It's not over. This morning, Jess was in full panic mode. She ran through the house, calling for Leah. She left, I told her. Jess didn't believe me. But Marcus, he sighed in relief. At least it doesn't stink anymore, he muttered. I thought it was over. Then I noticed something. Daniel the late sleeper hadn't woken up all day. When I finally walked into the living room, I saw him sitting on the couch next to Marcus. Only, he wasn't playing the game in front of him. His hands rested limply on the controller, his head tilted slightly, his eyes wide, unblinking, stared blankly at the screen. Marcus nudged him, laughing. Dude, wake up, you're terrible at this game. Daniel didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. My stomach twisted. It was happening again. And if no one else could see it, then that meant one thing. It was up to me to stop it, before I was the next one to stop moving.